Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm an early childhood education major at the University of Montana Western, and this is my senior project. My senior project is called Curriculum a la carte. I named it that because I took some pieces from other curriculum models and blended them together. From Montessori, I took the idea of student-directed and student-paced learning. From Reggio Emilio, I took the 100 languages and extensive documentation of learning. From creative curriculum, I took the idea of themed learning units. From the project approach, we used a culminating event to make learning visible. One of the first things that I did was modify my environment to help me teach and to meet my learning goals. I changed our block center to having better blocks and noticed that the students made more use of it. I changed our challenge center to having new provocations, a new table, a sensory bin, and themed activities that the students could choose from. After doing this, I noticed that the students were engaging more in the activities provided. Another change that I made was to relocate our weather station and to make it into a dramatic play of meteorologist and forecasting. In preparation for presenting this themed unit, I reviewed and purchased 8 different curriculum sets from the internet. I printed select pieces and created a presentation board to be placed in the center for student use. One of the major goals of my project was to integrate all 6 components of STREAM: science, technology, reading, engineering, arts, and math. For each of the 6 components, I designed 2 activities that the students could choose to engage in and investigate. One activity that I created for use of technology in the classroom was to take picture cards and themed books and create QR codes for children to use the iPad and scan. I noticed that the children were not using the iPad or the QR code basket. At the suggestion of the curriculum expert that I interviewed, I conducted one-on-one training sessions to explain the use of the QR code basket and the QR codes. After that, I noticed an increase in use of the basket independently by students. What was that on there? Oh, it's precipitation.
Evaporation happened. The sound's so pretty. Wind pushes the water vapor around as condensation turns it back.
Another important goal for this curriculum modification project was to integrate Indian Education for All, or IEFA, ways of knowing. To incorporate other ways of knowing, we were able to use pictures I had taken of our neighbor's tree over the span of a year and incorporate that with the publication Indigenous Knowledge and Cultural Weather Perspectives from the Canadian Ministry of Education. The objectives of analyzing meteorological data for a given time span using appropriate methodologies and techniques, and explore cultural and historical views on origins and interpretations of weather. The data that I collected while implementing our themed units indicated through anecdotal notes and frequency counts that children engaged more in the activities for the unit when they were tangible and they could use their 5 senses. The children engaged more with our water cycle unit than with our weather cycle unit. When they all stuck together enough, they started running down the glass, and that was precipitation. That's right. What do you think is going to happen to the snow? What's your prediction?
Melt.
You think it's going to melt. What do you think, Sylvie?
If we hold it and rub it, it will melt.
You think you could melt it with your hands? Okay, so we have some predictions. We think it's going to melt. And while you play with it, I want you to observe what's happening. So use your 5 senses and make some observations. We're gonna melt? How are we gonna do it? Tell me how.
Well, put it in the sun.
We could put it in the sun because the sun has, where the sun is hot. The sun is hot and it would melt it. Do we have sun in here? Do we have a sun in here?
No.
There's sun coming through the window.
Yeah!
We could leave it open and have the window shine on it. What else could we do?
They are there.
Put it back out there in the sun? Well, it's pretty cold outside. As the unit progressed, the students became aware of other places that they could see the water cycle, like frozen leaves on the ground. See the water vapor coming off of a pot of spaghetti. You guys said I cooked it. Do I use cold to cook it?
No.
What do I use to cook it?
The stove.
Do I use cold?
No. The stove.
But what do I use? What does the stove do? Does it make things cold?
No.
It makes it hot. So I used the stove to make it hot. I made the liquid water hot. How do you think that applies to our sensory table snow if we want to turn it into water vapor? What could we do to our sensory table snow if we want to turn it into water vapor?
A volcano view.
Something to think about.
This is the
Being able to have hands-on experience with the states of water turned the students' learning into concrete knowledge. Using solid water to paint and puffy paint to make clouds made it fun and memorable. When it came time for a culminating event at the end of our water cycle, the students created a mountainous area with runoff and a collection lake at the bottom. For our weather unit, students were able to create a solar system with myself holding a flashlight at the center and
You are the planets.
them going around me
You guys are going
to simulate
around
the
me.
cycle of the planets
Right?
and the seasons.
Planets go around the sun.
Using the 100 languages, this student demonstrated her learning through Play-Doh. She has 1 star in her solar system and 8 planets. Another goal of this project was to create school-to-home bags. The purpose of the school-to-home bags was to engage families in their child's learning. Each bag contained a book, a simple craft or a project, an instruction sheet, and a gift that they could keep. Through follow-up and feedback from the families, I was able to ascertain that only 1 family was completing the experiments from the school-to-home bags. Therefore, I conducted the experiments with the class so that no child was left out. Important to any project is being able to track all of the modifications that are being made. At the beginning, I used a paper anchor chart, and I quickly discovered that this was not something that I am going to be preserving from year to year. So I switched to using our chalkboard as an anchor chart, and this worked much better for us. I also used a KWL chart where I tracked what our activities are, our learning, my anecdotal notes, and my frequency counts. In addition to my own documentation, and as a part of the scientific method, the students took notes, pictures, and wrote vocabulary words in their journals as they learned. Lastly, to preserve and store the materials and documentation from this project, I redesigned the program storage. After working on my project for 2 months, here are some of the key things that I have learned. Being prepared with materials, lesson planning, and activities can be key to facilitating student learning. Best practice in early childhood education can be introducing a theme that allows the educator to be prepared while still allowing for student-directed learning. With simple preparation and flexibility, we can overcome the stigma and fear sometimes associated with integrating STREAM and IEFA learning into the home-based early childhood education program. The school-to-home bags were not as successful as I had hoped. However, they are still an important component because the family feedback that I received indicated that they appreciated the extension of curriculum into their homes. I have chosen video to document my project so that I can share what I have learned with my peers, with the hope that they could make positive changes to their pedagogy and promote the advancement of early childhood education as a profession. As for myself, I will continue to use this hybrid model to design student-led and educator-facilitated themed learning units for subsequent months. I will preserve my learning and materials for the use in future years of teaching.